Alright, welcome to my channel. This is LockChuck. What I'm going to do today is a how-to video on this Unity Disc Detainer padlock. It is rated as a green belt on the LPU, and this will also be an entry video into Lock Fumbler's 1000 subscriber giveaway. And what he wanted to do is kind of explain how to pick a entry-level lock and up to green, I believe, and this is ranked green. So I figured I'd do it on disc detainers because they are some of my favorite locks. So what is a disc detainer lock? So instead of having pins, they have these discs that rotate in the lock. You're not pushing anything up per se, you're just rotating these discs in the lock. All the discs are in a carrier, so when they're sitting in here normally and the lock is in the lock position, they are all turned counterclockwise. And what locks up the lock is this sidebar. So this sidebar stays right here and it's in the lock position, and with this lock, this sidebar is blocked from coming in. When the key is entered and turned, that sidebar drops down and unlocks this. And within the housing, when this is in the housing, so we'll drop this in there, and we'll lock it back. So right now, this core, get in the frame, this core cannot rotate because the disc is blocking that sidebar from moving in. But once that disc is rotated and that sidebar is allowed to drop in, then the mechanism is allowed to turn. So that's the principle of a disc detainer lock. You're rotating these discs to allow the sidebar to move in and clear this notch, and once it's cleared, it allows the lock to unlock. So how do we do that? So what we need to do is, just like any other picking, you have two things you need to do. You need to apply tension to cause this to bind up, and then you have to have something to pick it. And what we use is a disc detainer pick of some sort. There's many different types. This one is referred to as a front tensioning lock or pick because you use the first disc to tension off of and you pick with the second. So give me a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reassemble this core real quick and show you how this kind of works as it's picking through the lock. So give me just a minute to get it back together. All right, so I got it back together, and before I show you this, what I want to show is the bitting, how the bitting works. If you look on the key, there's these cuts. The cuts are at different depths or angles. So this turns the discs at different degrees, which depending on the disc, it'll get it into the correct gate on the disc, and these are gates. So when the key is inserted, I'm going to show you, all the discs kind of turn at different, they start turning at different times is when they hit that, hits their groove. So because it kind of delays some of them, they don't turn as much because of those cuts. But if it's correct when it does happen and you're turning it, and once you get it fully turned, that sidebar, that sidebar will drop into that and unlock it. So that's how the key works. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to get this back together and talk about how I go about picking this one. And one thing before I get going, the Unity is one of those locks that some of the discs have these wider kind of limits the travel of the discs. So some are large, some are small, and if you notice, they all kind of turns at different different degrees. So I'm gonna kind of stop here, get it back together, and try to pick it. But what I would like to do is I'm gonna try to post some pictures, one probably of the key, and then two of how the disc needs to be positioned in the cylinder itself. So all right, let me get all that together and put this back together, and we'll start picking. All right, so I got the lock back together, and now we need to get our pick set up. So depending on how your pick sets up, will determine how this procedure kind of goes. Some you have to move this in and out. If you have any kind of like spacers or even like washers, you can kind of help. You can stack washers onto the front of the pick to get you the right standoff, and I'll show that. But first, depending on the lock, see this one has a profile, and you kind of tell the profile of the key here. There's these grooves on the sides, so your tension tip and your pick tip have to be able to go into the lock smoothly. So depending on your lock, you may have to file some of this down, and like this one's got a notch cut in the center so it can pass the profile of these keys, and the tip also is kind of a hourglass shape, if you will. It's been kind of cut down in the center to pass that profile, and that could be for any profile here or all the way through the lock, so depending on the lock. So this tip is about 0.8 millimeters thick. You don't want to go much thicker than that. So if you got a micrometer or caliper, you can measure the thickness this way, because you've got to be able to go in those spacers between the disc and be able to turn this. So let's get this. First thing we need to do is get this tension tip set up. It's sometimes easier before you assemble the lock to do it, but if you're not good at taking it apart, that's fine. What you need to do is kind of what I do first is I get all the discs lined up, you know, when you lock the lock back, and I'll stick the tension and tip in, or excuse me, the picking tip, and then I'll turn the tensioner kind of 90 degrees to it, and I'll just kind of push that on there, and I'll look for the gap. So those discs are about 1.5 millimeters thick plus the spacer. So what I'll do is I'll kind of just judge that gap, and right now I'm just kind of making that gap a little bit bigger. You can see that gap there. So all right, so let's test if I got that right. If you don't have this, you may have to take screws out, adjust your height, or add spacers. But once I have that, I'll turn it into it, and then I'll turn fully clockwise until it stops. And what you want to do is you want to pull it back and look and make sure. Let's see if I can kind of can't get, let me see if I can zoom in with the camera. Sorry. All right, so if you kind of look in there, you can get a good bit of light without, it's kind of hard to not pull the pick out. Let me see if I can pull the pick out. All right, so there we go. So I've only turned one disc, and that's good. That next line you see there is the actual spacer. So the tip is only turn the first disc, and we'll stick it back in. The next thing I like to test is when I'm tensioning, does it like, I give it a little wobble, and if it likes to come off, I want to go deeper. So that one's holding pretty good. So I'm good. I'm happy with that setup. So let's go from there. So next, I like to pick from in a vise. You don't have to. That is all personal preference. Sorry, let me back this up just a little bit. All right, so, and some people will turn the lock, and this one I'm not going to pre-turn everything 90 just because there's some limiting discs in here, and I'll show you, try to show you pictures of those as I'm picking. So as long as everything is back counterclockwise, I'll insert my picking tip, and I'll go in with my tensioner, and it depends on your pick. If you've got lines, you can use them. Let's see. Let's see if I. Alright, sorry about that. I didn't like the video the way it turned out, so I'm going to jump back in here and redo it. So I've got everything again not turned, so it's counterclockwise, so it's in the lock, just like it would be if you locked it. So I'm going to slip the picking tip in, and I'm going to get the tensioner on the first disc. So make sure I'm kind of, sorry, I'm going to move so maybe you can see the picking tool. So I'm going to go all the way to the back. So I haven't pre-rotated, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of pull the pick out, and if I feel it hit something, I'm going to go back, turn 90 degrees, and just double check I hit it the same place. So I believe that's the first disc. So what I like to do with this style lock is I'm just going to turn the pick counterclockwise, and I just did, and there, I'm on a disc. It doesn't line up with the dots exactly, that's fine, I just know about where it's at. So that's behind the disc. If I come up, there's the disc, and if I go past it, it goes back. So I'm just about center is, if you will, you see the next dot, it's about the edge of that dot is that disc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on that disc, and I've got tension on the lock with this hand, so I'm turning clockwise, and I'm going to go back, get on that disc, and I'm going to turn this disc clockwise and see what I feel. Okay, I don't feel anything. So a good rule of thumb is if you don't feel anything, then turn it fully clockwise and allow it to stay there. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn backwards until I hit the next disc, and I turn counterclockwise. The tensioner stops, so I know I'm on the disc. I'm going to start turning this one. Feels gritty all the way, so I don't feel anything. Well, let me get back. Right there, it kind of frees up. Right there, I don't feel any dragging. Right there, I feel dragging. So I'm going to pump it back right about there. I mean, it's really subtle. All right, so this one, I'm on the next disc. Turn counterclockwise, it stops. We'll start turning this one. I got to let up tension. I mean, this one's really grabbing. I got to slipped off. So I think I'm fully clockwise. I'm going to come back. See, it doesn't want to come back. I have to let up tension. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to turn back and see if I can get a good click. Yep, I got a click there. So I'm going to leave that one that way. Alrighty. This one I'm on the next disc. Feels really gritty, and it stops. It doesn't give me that same full turn as that one. So I'm going to let up tension. Okay, it continued. So that must have been a gate. I'm going to go back. See if I can find it again. Gave me a little click. I'm going to try to go back that way. It doesn't want to go any further, so I believe that's the gate. So I'm going to go back again. Alright, I'm on the disc. That one kind of gave right there. Feels free. If I let up, it will go past. Come back to it. Alright, heard that click. So this one feels gritty. Freed up right there. Okay. And that one feels gritty, and it kind of frees up. I think that's a full turn as well. And I believe now I'm at the front of the lock. So I'm just going to go back through, checking everybody. Kind of make sure they feel loose where they're at. I'm not, see that one feels loose. As long as nobody feels like it's grinding. Okay, that one feels, it was a little grindy and I got it to a loose spot. This one will come back, feels grindy, and then if I go back, it drops back in. This one, let up tension a little bit. All right, got a good click there. This one, I believe is already, all right, oop. That one freed up right there. That one freed up right there. Okay. So, I think I'm at the back of the lock again. So, I'm going to go back to it. And that one feels like it's binding good right there. I'm going to leave it. It's probably just one that needs just a little bit of turning. There it is. And we're unlocked. All right. So hopefully I got some pictures up here and showing you where I was at on the key, if I was able to keep up myself. But anyway, I hope that helps you understand how to go about picking or going after a disc detainer lock. All right. Thanks for watching.